Scrolling Sword, welcome back. We just read chapters 22 through 24 of 2 Samuel. I want to look at 24, 18 through 25, where we see David, he has an altar on Araunah's threshing floor, and it becomes more than a place like where judgment stops. Actually, according to 2 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1, this location becomes connected to the future temple site. Like, think about this. Sometimes the altars that God leads you to can become temples of the very living God. And as we look into this biblical text, his census brings judgment on Israel. But when the plague reaches Jerusalem, God shows mercy and commands David to build an altar on the threshing floor. And David refuses to offer God something that cost him nothing. And I love the Hebrew idea behind cost me nothing. The word is hanam, meaning free, empty, or without cost. The place of judgment becomes the place of sacrifice. And later, the temple would stand in that same exact storyline as the place where God's mercy actually meets his people. It's the place where they actually meet to worship God, in the place of sacrifice, in the place of emptying. I remember there was a time when my father was diagnosed with cancer, and he had already went through some cancer treatments. This was a decade and a half ago at this point, and I remember in a worship service at church, he was standing there, and I wasn't playing on the worship team that morning because I was taking a break to help my parents with my dad's treatments and all that, going to Houston and back a couple times. And I remember struggling in the worship service to worship. And I look over to the left around my mom and looked at my dad, and his hands were sky high. He had tears running down his face, and he was singing a song by Casting Crowns. Shout out to Casting Crowns. He was singing Glorious Day, which was a resurrection song, and he was worshiping that through cancer. And me, I didn't have cancer. I just had a dad who had cancer, and it wasn't my body that was getting broken down. And I was sitting there just in my darkness and in my defeat, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how is he it seems like he's paying such a price to worship God in that way. And I started to wonder about the cost of the suffering that he was going through and what he was in the middle of surrendering just in that moment of worship. Like, it's going to be a glorious day, God, when I see you face to face. And ultimately, what I've learned is real mercy comes after surrender. My dad, he let go of his life, let go and let God, like we say in church. And then real worship comes after sacrifice, emptying yourself. So what we need to do today, my friend, you need to take a look at your life. I recommend you take a look at your prayers and see where you've been asking for convenience and attempting to avoid paying the cost that mercy and worship requires. Notice where your pain in your past has made you guarded in this present moment and also weary of the future, because that might not be traumatic territory, but holy ground for an altar for you to give to the Lord. And if your version of conviction, because at the altar we're convicted, in the temple we're convicted. If this version of conviction is just feeling bad, you need to upgrade that into the tool that moves you toward repentance and worship, letting everything go, sacrificing everything so you can come face to face with God. And I pray that today God can turn the place of judgment into the place where mercy meets you. Love y'all. See you in the discussion room.